love anything they have to offer me, right? It's like, get over yourself, Mark. You've got to.
I believe if we could be indivisible, we would be indestructible. And
Hi, Advair. After this, I don't mean to ask you to put you on the spot to say, tell us what's going to happen in the future, but tell us what's going to happen in the future.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Keep Leading Live. Keep Leading Live is a program dedicated to leadership development and insights. I'm your host, Eddie Turner, the Leadership Accelerator. I work with leaders to accelerate performance and drive impact through the power of executive coaching, masterful facilitation, and keynote speeches. Today, I'm broadcasting on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you're joining us, please hit that share button. That way your friends and colleagues can see the session live, or they'll catch the recording later on. Hit the like button so that we know that you gives us a reaction to how you're responding to what you're hearing. If you have a question, feel free to ask your question and we will answer. I don't always see what's coming in, but if I see it, I will show it and make sure that my guest is able to comment on it. By the way, if you're not already following my guest, I encourage you to follow her on social media. And during today's session, we're going to talk about leading from the top. And we're going to talk about leading from the top because my guest today is a phenomenal woman who is truly an inspiration to many. And we're going to talk about what we really mean when we're talking about leading from the top, because it's multifaceted. My guest today is the amazing Cris Howard. Cris Howard and her transition from the boardroom to the hiking trail is really a testament to the universal leadership principles. And it showcases how resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking are indispensable in both worlds. Now, Cris she is a proven clinical operations executive who can articulate an innovative vision, inspire organizational change, and deliver operational excellence. She grew a project management department from 40 to 300 employees in 24 countries, all while encouraging, inspiring employee loyalty. She's overseen drug trials, and specifically one, a notable one, the Advair, a pediatric asthma drug. She's a paid keynote speaker who's given over 200 speeches in Asia, Europe, South America, and across the U.S. We're going to get into one of her most recent accomplishments, and that is of hiking the Appalachian Trail all the way from Georgia through Maine, 2,200 miles on foot, carrying all of her essentials in a 30-pound backpack. And she's completed 12 Ironman competitions, including the World Championship one held in Hawaii. She truly is an Iron Woman. Cris, welcome to Keep Leading Live.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to carry you around in my pocket and have you introduce me to all things.
Well, Cris, I am just so impressed by you. I always have been from the very first time we met. And I just have been excited about the opportunity, thrilled to introduce my audience to you so they can get a chance to know you and be inspired by you the way I and so many others have been. So please tell my listeners what I may have missed.
Well, I think the most important thing is that we work together. You were my executive coach for many years. And
Yes.
so I think that you can take some part of the credit for anything of these good list of things that you say. So I appreciate all of your guidance. And every conversation that I have with you, Eddie, I always feel so inspired. I feel like I need to run outside and just shout to the world, like, yes, I can do this, because you're so encouraging, and just really value our friendship.
Well, thank you, Cris. And, it really was an honor to work with you. And your example, what I talk about often, is that great leaders, they don't really need much. They're already successful. They're already thriving at the top of their game. They just need a coach that may help them just maintain that competitive edge. And there might be one or two areas they might just want to finesse a little bit more, but you are already playing above the rim, operating at a high level. So, what a treasure to meet you. Tell us, if you will, about the great work that you're doing today, because I understand that you recently made a change in organizations.
Yes. On April 1st, and it was not an April Fool's joke, I joined GlaxoSmithKline again after 23 years, which is really so serendipitous to see my career come in full circle. And I am part of a team for pipeline project management. And we are building a top project management department where we're going to be the envy of other large pharmaceuticals and display the best of project management talent. So we are excited. We have a plan. We have a vision. And we are going to be executing over the next 3 years. We're the one to watch.
Well, congratulations on the new role, and that sounds immensely exciting. And it's one of the other amazing credentials you have that I did not mention. In addition to your tremendous education, you are a project management professional.
That's right.
And for those who don't know, that is one of the hardest certifications to achieve.
I don't want to sit for that test again, I'll tell you that.
Yes, it is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Yes.
Excellent. So one of the things that jumps out about you right away, Cris, is you're one of the most regal, most dignified women who epitomizes executive presence.
Oh.
And when we look at you and to see you and navigate and move the way that you do, I was surprised, I was surprised that you were an Iron Woman. So tell us how you go from the woman who we see usually as the Iron Woman, as the sophisticated dressed woman, to an Iron Woman, and then navigating the Appalachian Trails.
Oh, this is fabulous. Yes, honestly, well, let me first define what is Ironman competition. So it is the ultra distance triathlon. It consists of a 2.4 mile swim, followed by a 112 mile bike. And then if that's not enough for one day, we start off onto a marathon. Mm-hmm. So total, it's 140.6 miles in a day to compete. And I didn't just compete on a regular level, although I did start that way, but I moved my way up to the elite, training next to some of the greatest pro athletes in the world. This televised was such a thrill. And the big thing that I learned in that experience is that the humility in being able to always be interested in learning, always be interested in listening to what other people can teach you. That is the symbol of greatness. Greatness is not, I know everything and I'm going to teach you. Instead, it's, I am so thirsty to learn more and that ability to absorb, because the micro habits lead to the macro results. And that's what I learned through Ironman. So I take that lesson and I apply that to not just the boardroom, but I also applied it to the Appalachian Trail. We can define that. So the Appalachian Trail starts in Georgia, in Springer Mountain, Georgia, and it's the longest continuous footpath going through 14 states on the east side of the United States, and it ends smack dab in Maine, on top of Baxter Park, and that was my finisher photo there on Katahdin. The total amount of elevation gain is 550,000 miles, feet, which is the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest 18 times. And yes, it did feel that way. So what I learned is, and the interesting thing is, I never camped before, I never hiked before, but I needed a challenge similar to Ironman to kind of get back into the game, because for many reasons I can't do the Ironman to the same degree. And I took a leap of faith, and I just believed in myself, and I dared to dream big. And I showed up on that starting line by myself with a 30-pound pack. And I told myself, you know what? I don't know anything today, but I will when I'm finished, and I will be quite an expert when I'm finished. And I didn't mind making a fool of myself. I didn't mind, rolling around in the mud and asking people for advice. And that humility helped me to continue to grow and to refine until I became one of the 20% of people who finished that 2,200 mile journey all in 1 year.
Only 20% finish it in a year.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Of those who start, those are the ones who finish. And you see why, because I have to say that the Appalachian Trail made Ironman look like a walk in the park. And the reason is you don't have a place to escape. You're always in the game. So once you're finished hiking 20 miles a day, you have to find water, collect water from a stream. You have to filter it. You have to start a fire. You have to cook your food. You have to build your tent. And then when you're collapsed and the next morning you start all over again. You reverse engineer, and then you get back out and every single day through rain, through mud, and Eddie, the mud, through the rocky terrain, through the mosquitoes, through the heat, through the malnourishment, and you just persevere, and you get pushed to the very edge on a daily basis. And the really cool thing that I like about this is there's always one more thing you can do. There's always 1% better that you can do. And when you're pushed up to that edge, you have a choice. You can either stop and go home like the rest of the 80%, or you can just try one more trick to get that 1% better. And that's what keeps you going.
So at the end of a long day of hiking, 20 miles a day with 30 pounds on your back, there was no Starbucks or a great eatery to go dine at. The real work happens in terms of getting some nutrients in your body so you can start all over the next day.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Yeah.
Very, very impressive, Cris. Now, there are a few rich nuggets you dropped there as you told that story that I'd like to just kind of tease apart, if I may.
Yeah.
First, let me mention that we have someone tuning in from Facebook, Emmanuel Jang. He's giving you a heart. So we want to acknowledge that you're getting love on the Facebook side. We are broadcasting LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So definitely we appreciate that, Emmanuel, letting us know your reaction to what Cris is saying. You used the word humility a couple of times, Cris.
Yeah.
And its role in, number one, you said the need to be a continuous learner, and there's a role that humility plays in learning. And I like that connection that you made that sometimes we miss. And then you brought it up again later on in terms of your knowledge of not knowing but you would be an expert when you were done. Talk about that just a little bit more if you can. That powerful connection that humility has in this way.
Yeah, yeah. It requires it's a small way of articulating a big, huge universe of belief in yourself, a confidence that you know that you are enough, and that you don't mind looking like a fool. And trust me, I looked like a fool on many days, but that's okay. Don't be afraid to flop around, to make a mistake, to have a bad day, to drop a couple F-bombs, and that I did. It's okay. Just don't use that as a reason to give up. Have that faith in yourself and that courage to persevere and trust that there will be victory in the end.
Excellent. And that is indeed one of the leadership secrets that you're sharing with us. So thank you for sharing the importance that humility plays in being a successful leader, because it starts with being a successful learner. It reminds me of the quote, and I can't remember who said it, so I can't make proper attribution, but it says that in the beginner's mind, there are many options. In the expert's mind, there are few. And so that concept that the beginner is curious, they are willing to take it more and ask questions, whereas the expert goes in, I know everything, I don't need to, anyone tell me something. So I appreciate you sharing that and giving it to us in a real life example of how that has fueled you in your pursuits and your accomplishments.
Can I add to that? Because I have a really interesting story. The
Please.
fact that I started that trail absolutely raw. I pitched my tent one time 2 weeks ahead of leaving, 1 mile from my house. Like I was
Wow.
I was a total idiot. But
So you hadn't hiked before and you never even pitched your own tent.
no, none of that. I mean, look at this. I'm a princess.
A self-proclaimed princess is out on the
Exactly.
hiking trail trudging through the mud.
But it was interesting because that attitude of learning, self-confidence, ability to weather the storms, and not being afraid to look like a fool, that actually was the ingredient for me to be one of the 20% who succeeded. There were other people, so many other people who had years of experience hiking. They knew everything. They could run down the list of, all the equipment and the materials and how much it weighs. They could do everything, and they had a plan, and they were going to do it that way. But what happens when we go in too prepared sometimes is that we become inflexible and we forget to learn, to your point. And that is what makes people break, is the inflexibility. So the lesson to be learned is, if you're open, to your point, then you're able to roll with the punches and accept the challenge no matter what happens. Because I didn't plan on every single contingency. I did a lot of planning, but not on every single contingency, not at all.
You left a little room to be pleasantly surprised,
Yeah.
and then that's where your adaptability kicked in.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we don't leave room for that, and that's where our true growth happens.
Yes. Yes.
You made another point about how you were willing to grow 1%.
Yeah.
Explain why that's important.
It goes back to that original lesson that I learned as an Ironman, the elite Ironman. And it's micro adjustments lead to macro results. So you can be great, but are you a world champion? Right? How do you go from great to world champion? What is that incremental? And it's all the 1% micro this, just a small adjustment here, just a teeny tiny adjustment there, and those add up. And to somebody else, it's not important enough to consider. But when you do add those up, then that's how you become truly excellent on a world stage.
So it's those little habits that we create and or adjustments we make if we got the wrong habits, right?
Right.
It's not always something big. So that's why I appreciate you highlighting that. Those
Yeah.
micro habits getting 1% better, because so often people believe it's these huge leaps. But no.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the quotes that comes to mind is where, again, I'm not going to quote it properly or give the right attribution, but it's that excellence is not an accident. It's not an accident. We are a product of our habits, and so
Yes.
excellence is based on habits.
That's my favorite quote. You stole my thunder. I was going to save that for the end. Excellence.
Oh, am I quoting your quote? I'm sorry. I know
That's such a good
it was
quote.
something recent in my head from something.
Yes. Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, it's a habit.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate you
My
saying
mantra.
that, Cris.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that quote. Yes, and so it was probably fresh in my mind because I read what you sent me. I'm sorry. Beautiful, but no, it really makes the point well. And so when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about Carol Dweck's work, the growth mindset. Right, that's one of the most notable works on what it takes to succeed in this space. So I really appreciate what you share on that. And then finally, one of the points you mentioned was that you said, "I dare to dream big."
Yeah.
And that's important because sometimes other people suck our dreams away from us and tell us what we can't. So I love how you lit up when you said that. And even now, I see it on your face. Tell us why that matters.
We've got one life, Eddie. We've got one life. Choose wisely, And if you are setting a goal and it doesn't give you butterflies in your stomach and it doesn't make you think, oh my gosh, there's no way, it's not big enough. You got to go bigger. You got to go broader. It's got to make you feel that when you are in that process that you're learning, right? Because you're going through all the things of discomfort and that's where the growth happens, right? But when you get to the end, you need to feel, wow, that was worth the struggle. That was worth the victory. That was worth all of the things that I had to sacrifice to get here. And that's when it gives you that tenacity to hold on to those dreams, because eventually they do get realized.
Indeed, they do. And Cris, you have applied this in other areas than just the hiking trail and in your competitions as an Iron Woman.
Yeah.
You have proven to be an Iron Woman, not just through your work as a global executive, but also you were vocal about a personal struggle where you have to pull all this in to another practical application. You mind sharing that with our listeners?
You're talking about my melanoma.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Yes. So, I've always been on the outdoor. I've loved the outdoors, but I also am a child of the 70s and the 80s. And we love to go outside into the sun and pour baby oil all over skin. The darker the skin, the closer to God was the answer. But that's not what you do when you have freckles and red hair. It's not a good recipe. So I already have the DNA for melanoma, as well as squamous cells and basal cell cancer. But that activity really didn't do any favors for me. So the intersection between genetics and environment happened, and I got diagnosed with melanoma stage 2B. And so I needed to take time out of my job and go through my treatment. And it was during that time that I call it stepping away from the vortex, where I really kind of reflected on, what am I doing? What choices am I making in this world? And are they aligned with my values? My value for being outdoors, my value for taking on big challenges and scaring myself and doing them anyway. And does all these values where I just felt like I was in a place where I was living on a day to day, but I wasn't truly challenged. I wasn't truly stimulated, and I wasn't learning in a new way. And so that's what propelled me to, after my treatment was finished, I got the clearance from the doctor. And 60 days later, I was on the trail of the Appalachian Trail. And that's how I started.
Outstanding.
Live big.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Truly an iron woman. And 60 days later. Oh my
60 days
word.
later. Yes.
So now, after listening to you, perhaps people can understand why I said you're such an inspiration to many.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you really are a stellar example, Cris. So thank you for sharing that story with us. I know it's deeply personal, but so encouraging to others to see that life certainly doesn't have to end. You can continue to adapt. You can continue to be resilient and lead on the top, both in the corporate boardrooms and on the trails, but also in life by rising up from those types of circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, how else does all of this come together and show up in your leadership in corporations, Cris?
So my work now with GSK is just beginning. And so I'm in a phase now where I am getting to build relationships and understand the landscape, understand the history and the great shoulders of giants that we stand on, and how can I add value while appreciating the work of others. And so through that, I do have a deep, deep belief that our team at GSK will build the world's best pipeline project management group ever seen. We will be transformational. And I do believe it because we have the talent and we have the experience. And quite frankly, we have the support, which is so critical. So I stand at the beginning of the Appalachian Trail, the GSK, and we're at the beginning of this journey. And I can see ahead of what tricks we're going to have challenges. We are going to go through the forming, storming, norming, performing, as all teams do. We're going to feel uncomfortable. We are going to sometimes question, are we on the right path? But at the end of the day, we all need to have faith and a true belief that yes, we can, and yes, we will. So
yes,
I can't wait.
Yes, we will.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Well, much success to you in your new role there at GSK. And
Yes.
might I ask you to leave us with the most important lesson you want us to take away from our conversation today?
Yes. So I'll just restate the quote from Aristotle and what it means to me. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, it's a habit. And so I encourage all of us to check in to our daily rituals. Are they adding value? Are they aligned with who you are and your personal mission? And are they building towards that great dream that you dare to dream that gives you butterflies in your stomach? And if the answer is yes, then you're on your way. But if the answer is no, make it just a small, teeny, tiny little change. Doesn't have to be big. And then once you're successful there, then make another teeny, tiny little change. And eventually those small changes will lead to big changes. And those big changes is what's going to lead to the great results.
Outstanding. Well, Cris, we're going to let everybody know to follow you on LinkedIn. Scrolling down here at the bottom of the screen, folks. For folks who will hear the audio of this later, it's Cris, C-R-I-S,
Yes.
Cris Howard. You'll find her on LinkedIn. Follow her in the great work that she's doing. Cris, thank you again for being a guest on Keep Leading.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here in your company.
My honor, my pleasure. And thank you for listening. That concludes this episode, everyone. I'm Eddie Turner, reminding you that leadership is not about our title or our position. Leadership is an activity. Leadership is about action. It's not the case of once a leader, always a leader. It's not a garment that we put on and take off. We must be a leader at our core and allow it to emanate in all we do. So whatever you're doing, always keep leading.